we both seem to be working on different lands, but towards the same sort of a mission of social change through education. That is her primary research focus. That was her primary research focus, and continues to be so. But at the moment, she is position of leadership at one of the very reputable universities in the United States and in the world, University of San Francisco. She's the Dean of the School of Education, and she is the first Nepali to have, and the first woman in the university, but the first Nepali to have actually occupied such a position in an American Institute of Higher Learning. And we are really very proud of your accomplishments. To host you here today. Aside from the personal connections and everything, Shabnam's interaction today at Teach for Nepal will be very, very relevant because she is a sort of an avid and ardent fighter for social justice through all of her missions in the United States and in another project in Iran. She is part Irani, part Nepali, and grew up in Nepal for the most part as a young person going to school. We both went to St. Mary's. And so naturally, even in our childhood, we were much more privileged than most of the children in Nepal. It might explain where we are right now as people, as leaders, but that's what we are saying our young children deserve, is that opportunity to excel through access to better quality education, right? So that is our entire mission. So without talking too much about who she is and what she is, I've asked her to actually do a session about 15 to 20 minutes long of her own accord on her understanding of social justice, connection between social justice and the purpose of education, and critical pedagogy. Because I think her whole belief system is rooted in this idea of critical pedagogy. You might have heard of it a lot during your trainings and things like that, but what does it mean for another practitioner in another context to have been a proponent of this way of thinking about education and to be working for it? So Shabnam, can you please start?
Sure. Thank you, Reshu, for that introduction. So चल्ने बानी छ कि कुराहरुलाई अनि त्यसपछि रेशुले भने जस्तै हामी सानैदेखि एकदम मिल्ने साथी भएर अहिले यसरी सँगै बसेर एजुकेसनको कुरा गर्दा झन् रमाइलो लाग्ने कि आफ्नै मिल्ने साथी हामी कसरी we our paths converged, and that's the beauty of our work, okay? Because as proponents of social justice, as proponents of education, I think sometimes we think, but that's not true. We need each other. We need to work with each other. We need to collaborate. We need to be together. We need to figure out how to do that really well in order to have the most positive impact. त्यसैले यो नै एउटा collaboration जस्तै भयो हाम्रो सानोदेखिको साथीहरु। खोइ यहाँबाट देख्नुहुन्न होला है, फेरि यहाँ गयो भने म के गर्नु, यहाँ अगाडि आउँ। बोर्ड अगाडि देख्नु, बोर्डलाई अगाडि आउँ। यता साइडमा ल्याएर यो साइडमा यता पनि राखेको नि हो, त्यता राखेको चाहिँ बन्द मेरो कुरा गर्दाखेरि एकदम हात हल्लाउने बानी छ अनि यता उता सक्ने बानी छ, त्यसैले bear with me है। ल अब कुरा सोध्नु भयो, what is the purpose of schooling in general? All of you are doing excellent work. म सुनिरहेको छु, कथाहरू आइरहेको छ, so inspired. यस्तो टिच फर नेपाल जस्तो प्रोग्राम नेपालमा देखेर मलाई यस्तो खुसी लागेको छ र सबैको कथाहरू सुन्दा नै एकदम खुसी लाग्छ कि तपाईहरु है दुःख कष्ट सहेर स्कुलहरुमा गएर पढाउने भनेको ठुलो कुरा हो. It's a really big service to humanity, one of the biggest service you can provide because it's all about raising consciousness, right? तर के हो त? Why education? हैन, what is the purpose of education? भन्दाखेरि मलाई जहाँसम्म लाग्छ, one of the main ways in which the purpose of education is defined these days is like what, throw out some ideas. When you talk to regular people, what will they say? What's the purpose of education? Job. Very good. Earning money. What else?
Quality living.
Quality living.
Social mobility.
Social mobility. Very good. So there are all these ways in which the purpose of education has been defined, right? But most of how education has been defined at the policy level, at the practice level, is in terms of labor, right? That necessarily you get an education because you want to participate in the labor market, because you want to gain the skills to be able to then promote, in some ways, the economic development. Big meta-narrative. So much of educational policy, US मा होस् जहाँ होस् त्यही छ. अहिले डोनाल्ड ट्रम्पले कुरा गरिरहेछ है, एजुकेसन डिपार्टमेन्ट र लेबर डिपार्टमेन्ट एउटै बनाउने. अब त्यस्तो गर्दा के हुन्छ? The definition of the purpose of education becomes more and more and more narrow, right? Then we get into this thing where it's like, okay, ल मैले राम्रो जब पाएँ, यसो गर्ने ल राम्ररी पढ्यो ठिक हो भन्ने खालको हुन्छ है. त्यो it's important, right? It's not to say that that is not important. The quality of life, that's really important, right? Social mobility in some ways is important. Tara, when we only define it in that way, we're missing a whole other set of reasons why education is important, right? And so what I say is, all those other reasons are things like, what does it mean to participate civically? What does it mean to educate in a way where you're conscious of the ways in which society has to change, right? Are you only going through this ladder that has already been set up? Or are you going through a process where you question those things? You know, it's important for me to move ahead, but why am I moving ahead and everyone else is still back there? Right? Why is my community not doing well, but I'm okay? So this is when we say the purpose of education. The purpose of education has to be much broader. But what we have to understand is that it has become a very narrow definition, right, of the purpose of education. So let's go back a little bit, right? So in terms of critical pedagogy, then, critical ways of thinking, why is that important? Right? So let's start from the basics. Let's say this is society, right? Schools are institutions in society. So there are theorists, there are lots of scholars who say that, sometimes we think that schools are institutions outside of society. Yes, society ma ke bhairacha. Schools are separate from that. The US ma separation of church and state. So they think that, if you separate these societal things from the schools, it's just a separate space. It's this, in some ways it's a bubble. But there are many people who say that, no, actually schools are a part of the society. So many of the issues that we see in society are actually reflected in schools, right? So what are some issues you see in society?
Segregation.
Segregation. No.
Gender roles.
Poverty.
Aspirations.
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 Aspirations. अनि सेन्ट मेरिजमा हामीलाई सिस्टरहरूले एकदम ह्यान्ड राइटिङ प्र्याक्टिस गर्नु आउँछ, त्यही पनि अलिक खराबै छ अनि so yes, these are just some examples of what, of issues that we see in society. So there are people who say that actually, you know what, these issues are very much reflected in schools, that they actually exist, right? I mean, there are people who take that even further to say that schools have become spaces where these things are actually perpetuated, right? The way schools are organized, the way formal schooling has become, is actually an instrument of those who are privileged in order to reproduce the status quo, right? So let's think about that for a minute. आफ्नै स्कुलिङमा, आफ्नै स्कुलिङ एक्सपिरियन्समा त्यस्तो थियो थिएन, कस्तो थियो भनेर एकछिन रिफ्लेक्ट गर्न पनि राम्रो के है. सो द क्लास भनौँ न है, सोसियो इकोनोमिक क्लास, हाउ इज द्याट सपोर्टेड इन स्कुल्स? वाट इज द कल्चर अफ स्कुल्स? है, गरिब बच्चाहरूलाई स्कुल आउँदाखेरि कस्तो फिल हुन्छ when they're in the school with those who have more, right? And how are people sorted in schools? This is where a lot of social theorists, especially educational theorists, bring up these issues, okay? That actually schools are spaces of social and cultural reproduction. Right? That's actually a term, social and cultural reproduction. If we don't consciously think about this, actually schools are arranged already to privilege those who already have and to further marginalize those who don't have. Right? So we think of that big narrative, right? School narrative. These are people who somehow critique that narrative. They say, actually, let's think about that. Is it true, or is it that schools, the way they are, the generality of schools, actually privilege some and marginalize others, right? So this term social and cultural reproduction is a really important one, because schools reproduce certain cultural norms that fit some and don't fit others. And social reproduction, the reproduction of class, right? That happens as well. So schools privilege some and they go into good jobs, and others, they'll go to school but they still don't have access to those same jobs, those kinds of things, right? So this is where a lot of this idea of critical pedagogy comes from, right? That schools, the way they're organized, actually can uphold the status quo, right? And do in some ways. Within these ideas, right, there's one idea that I really like. It's a big word, right? It's called यो वर्ड सुनेको छ कसैले? हेजेमनी भन्ने? Oh, excellent. Hegemony भनेको चाहिँ power, right? This power that exists. It's power. So यो ideological hegemony भनेको के हो त भन्दाखेरि power, हामीले power स्टेटले power एकदम exert गरेर कहिले मिलिटरीबाट देखिन्छ, यस्तो फोर्सेसबाट देखिन्छ है. That's more overt, होइन? ल्यायो अनि त्यसपछि कर्सायो अनि त्यसपछि पावर हुन्छ भन्ने. Ideological hegemony is more subtle, right? Ideology भनेको के हो? What's ideology? हामी सधैँ भन्छौँ है त्यो ideology मन पऱ्यो, त्यो ideology मन पऱ्यो. What's ideology?
Like belief system.
Excellent. Beliefs, ideas, values, very good, right? Beliefs, ideas, values. So एकजना एन्टोनियो ग्राम्सी भन्ने मान्छेले यो टर्म गरेको के आइडियोलोजिकल हेजेमनी भन्दा उसलाई चाहिँ इटलीको प्रिजनमा हाल्दिया के यो एकदम सोसलिस्ट भएर अनि त्यो बेलामा जेलमा हुँदाखेरि उसले यत्रो किताब लेख्या कि त्यो किताब पढ्न अलिक गाह्रै छ एकदम डेन्स छ प्रिजन नोटबुक्स भन्ने तर त्यो प्रिजन नोटबुक्समा उसले यो कन्सेप्ट लेखाएको थियो कि र यो चाहिँ किन इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ भन्दाखेरि उसले के भन्छ भने यो स्कुलहरूमा चाहिँ है सोसल कल्चरल रिप्रोडक्सन भइरहेछ ल ओके तर त्यो कसरी हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि कुनै प्रिभिलेज्ड ग्रुप्सहरूको बिलिफ्स आइडियाज भ्याल्युजलाई चाहिँ हामीले अपहोल्ड गर्छौँ होइन अनि त्यो आइडियाजहरू अपहोल्ड गर्दा के हुन्छ भने देयर इज अ होल लट अफ अदर बिलिफ्स आइडियाज भ्याल्युज द्याट आर मिसिङ एन्ड वी डोन्ट भ्याल्यू दिस है So what Gramsci says is that's essentially what's driving this reproduction, right? So even in places where we think, kasto egalitarian race ekdam ramro race bhandakari, Gramsci le ke bhन्छ भने you have to look at the values that are being upheld. र कसको beliefs and values हरु हामीले uphold गर्दा छौं, हैन? अनि कसको चाहिँ हामीले completely miss गर्दा छौं भन्ने कुरामा Gramsci ले भन्छ के अनि त्यसैले मलाई यो आइडियोलोजिकल हेजेमनी भन्ने कुरा एकदम मनपर्छ किनभने आइडियोलोजिकल हेजेमनी फ्रेम्स आवर थिङ्किङ है इट फ्रेम्स आवर थिङ्किङ फ्रेम भने के हो हामी सधैँ भन्छौँ नि त्यसको फ्रेमिङ राम्रो रहेछ त्यसले भने मलाई कुरा मन पऱ्यो एकदम फ्रेम राम्ररी भएर फ्रेम्स आर कमन सेन्स assumptions फ्रेम्स आर assumptions है के हुन्छ त भन्दाखेरि what happens with assumptions भने के हो assumption भने हो त्यस्तै हो भनेर अनि लाग्ने हैन पछाडि यस्तै हो यार यस्तै हो भनेर अनि त्यसलाई नै अडप्ट गर्ने त्यही थिङ्किङ सो एजुकेसनको फ्रेमिङ के छ त भन्ने कुरामा ग्राम्सीले अलिक पुश गर्छ के अनि common sense, so what Gramsci says is, so we take a lot of things like common sense assumptions, right? But those common sense assumptions are actually beliefs, ideas, values of a certain power structure. So for example, right? What's asked for so guys? Right? अगाडि पनि हैन केटीहरूलाई स्कुल पठाउनु हुँदैन भन्ने थियो एउटा हैन सोसाइटी had bought into that assumption हैन like oh the पढे लेखा मान्छे नि हो ठिकै छ गर्नु हुँदैन भन्ने एउटा कुरा है 100 वर्ष अगाडि even in like the western world there was this assumption that you can't educate girls because if you educate girls it messes with their body right? And then they won't be able to have kids. One notion. And society had completely bought into that, right? America में 50 वर्ष अगाडिसम्म and still यो काला जातिको मान्छेहरू African Americans should not be given an education because they're just less intelligent, right? They just don't have that capacity to think. भन्ने एउटा common sense assumption थियो. And everyone had bought into it, and we still see the effects of that, right? Common sense assumption. यहाँ पनि त्यस्तै along gender, हैन जात भातको कुरा, there's so many assumptions that framed our thinking. हामी नै यहाँ काठमाडौँमा हुर्किँदाखेरि कति कुराहरू त यस्तै हो भनेर प्र्याक्टिस गर्थ्यौँ हैन सो त्यो कुरामा चाहिँ that's what Gramsci is talking about. You know, there are a lot of frames about, we might even want to stop for a minute and think, gosh, what could be the common assumptions, common sense assumptions of our time right now? I mean, saying, what are we not questioning, right? They say much of education has been affected by these things. You know? Schooling then becomes a vehicle for social and cultural reproduction sometimes not even overtly, eh? So sometimes it might look like a very democratic space and everyone's participating, but more because of this ideological hegemony, because of what we're actually valuing and what types of things we're just taking as common sense assumptions and not challenging them, right? यसको कुराहरुमा दिनभरि कुरा गर्न सक्छु, त्यसैले म अलि एकछिन रोकेर के भन्छु भने critical pedagogy जो तपाईहरुलाई थाहा छ जस्तो धेरैलाई यो critical pedagogy भनेको के हो यस्तै कुराबाट आएको के. So critical pedagogues, a lot of them say we need to teach kids, we need to even teach adults, we need to teach youth in a way that allows them to recognize, right, to read their reality. Paulo Freire, example, Brazilian educator, activist, right? Like education for purpose is to raise consciousness, right? Where a term is conscientization. It's a process of raising consciousness. So in order to raise consciousness, they have to be able to read their reality. And educators have to teach them how to read their reality, right? यहाँ बसिरहेको छु के भइरहेको छ एक मान्छे किन त्यसो गरे होला त्यो बच्चा किन त्यहाँ काम गरेर होला के भइरहेको छ कसो भइरहेको छ instead of just being oblivious to all of that, going into school, reading, writing, getting your job, right? To be able to really think, hey, classroom आउँदा पढ्दाखेरि मेरो टिचरले त यसको कुरा गर्नुभयो है यस्तो प्रथाको कुरा गर्नुभयो अनि म त आज त बाफे सोचे भएँ भन्ने कुरा त्यस्तो to read their reality, right? That's one. And then to analyze its possibilities, right? You read the reality, but then that's not enough. You have to actually then think about the key government that's also the purpose of education. So in disrupting, in doing that, even in teaching students to ask simple questions, right? Questioning on हामी नै स्कुलमा पढ्दाखेरि सबै है त्यो बेलाको एकदम राम्रो स्कुलमा गएको तर कहिले पनि हामीले है यो किन यस्तो त्यो किन यस्तो भनेर कहिले सोधेनौँ के किनभने कुरा गर्यो भने मिसले गाली गर्ने हैन त्यसपछि धेरै जस्तो त मेमोराइजेसनबाटै हुन्थ्यो के है सो के पढ्यो अनि जाँच दियो अनि जाँचमा पास भयो सक्यो कि अनि त्यसैले त्यो हुनै भएन त्यो त्यस्तो इन्भाइरोमेन्ट किन यस्तो किन उस्तो भनेर भएन र यिनीहरूले के भन्छन् धेरै क्रिटिकल पेडागोजीको मान्छेहरू र पाउलो फ्रेरी जसले मैले भर्खर कुरा गरेँ नि उनीहरूले के भन्छ भने यो साइकल डिस्रप्ट गर्नै पर्छ सोसल चेन्जको लागि हो भने है इफ वी वान्ट एजुकेसन टु लिड टु सोसल ट्रान्सफर्मेसन you have to disrupt this cycle. You have to make sure that schools are not upholding the status quo, right? But in order to do that, educators have to be prepared to do that work, right? And it's difficult work. It's not easy. It's much easier to follow a curriculum, right? Teach them to just do the basics and leave, right? We all know educators are not valued. We don't make the big bucks, right? That's the hard work that educators today need to do to break these common sense assumptions, right? So what are the common sense assumptions of our time? त्यो पहिलाको common sense 50-100 वर्षको अगाडिको common sense assumption अहिले सोच्दाखेरि के भने होला त्यस्तो त्यो बेलामा मान्छेहरू कस्तो मूर्ख रहेछ भन्छ होला है तर अब 50 वर्ष अब 50 वर्षमा हाम्रो अब बच्चा के नाति पनातिले हेरेर छ्याकी भयो होला त्यो है 50 वर्ष अगाडि किन यस्तो विचार नगरे होला भन्छन् होला त्यसैले that's our challenge. What are the common sense assumptions of our time and how do we disrupt them? How do we disrupt this cycle? भन्ने कुरामा चाहिँ critical pedagogy आउँदैछ है मेरो युनिभर्सिटीमा एउटा साइन्स पढाउने हुन्छ कि भने प्रोफेसर हो अहिले तर धेरै वर्ष एलिमेन्ट्री स्कुलमा साइन्स पढाएको अहिले चाहिँ साइन्स एजुकेसन पढाउँछ है तपाईँहरू पनि धेरै होला साइन्समा इन्ट्रेस्ट भएको मान्छे अनि उसले चाहिँ के गर्छ भन्दाखेरि एउटा युनिट छ होइन यो चाहिँ रेन फरेस्टको बारे गर्ने क्लाइमेट कसरी चेन्ज हुन्छ यस्तो कुराहरू अनि उसले चाहिँ के गर्छ भने उसको त्यो युनिट आउँदाखेरि अब मोस्ट टिचर्स विल होइन टिच वाट्स देयर इन द करिकुलम उसले चाहिँ उसको क्लासरुमै रेन फरेस्ट जस्तो बनाइदिने कि पात सात झारपात हेरेर अनि बच्चाहरूभित्र आउँदै कस्तो त्यो एक्सपिरियन्स गरे जस्तो कि दे स्टार्ट सेइङ व्हाई इज इट लाइक दिस यो के हो व्हाई इज द्याट ओभर देयर व्हाई इज वाटर कमिङ फ्रम देयर भनेर इमिडिएटली दे स्टार्ट आस्किङ क्वेसन्स होइन अनि इन आस्किङ दोज क्वेसन्स द टिचर गाइड्स देम होइन देन हाउ डु यु आस्क क्वेसन्स व्हाई इज द इन्भाइरोमेन्ट बिकमिङ a big problem? What is climate change? Why is the rainforest? I know. How is the rainforest a part of all of this? And what does the destruction of the rainforest have to do? How does that affect us? How does that affect me? And then what can I do in doing that? They're still learning science. They're still learning science concepts. But they're also learning to ask these questions, right? They're still learning to question their reality. They're still learning to think about the assumptions that frames their thinking, and then to say, are those assumptions right? What do those assumptions do? So that is the core of critical pedagogy, right? It's not just teaching, and it's not just asking questions, but it gets at this issue of power. Who has the right to ask questions? Who has the ability to bring change, right? I mean, then students in this model of thinking are not only students, right? Very ones, okay? There's the banking system of education, which I would say we got a good education, but it was still in some ways banking. When I say you're empty vessel or some students say they're just empty vessels, you just put knowledge in them, and they know how to just take it out, right? But Freire says no. Like if you see students as agents of change, right, and if you view them as these beings that already have these capacities, you don't need to keep adding things. They have these capacities. Now the teacher's role is to really think about how do I bring these gems out? Right? How do I make the most of their capacities? So it's a little bit of a shift in how we think, right? And I mean, from what I hear, you all already know this. So I would say, if there's a question or something,
I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Right? So just in line with this, so that's fantastic, right? So school as a space that's reinforcing hegemony. So I want to ask you, as a teacher, in a society filled with disparities, right? Who is critical pedagogy for? Right. I mean, even in our rural setting, there will be families that are more privileged. There will be families that are really underprivileged. But once inside the classroom, how do you negotiate? How do you negotiate, let's say, hegemony manifested in the classroom, but as a teacher? And what do you think is the priority that the teacher needs to be conscious of?
That's an excellent question, eh? All of these ideas sound so good, eh? And this classroom was really loud, because the realities are different in each context, right? This is where I think the contextual piece comes in, okay? Context, say it's different, right? I mean, teacher lepani, I think some of these ideas and concepts are helpful, but you have to adapt it to the context, right? Your context, the classroom, and there is is poverty the issue, is gender the issue, is it all, teacher learning, they know best, right? To navigate those things, like what is it? So you come in with this orientation towards critical pedagogy. Tara, I think when you teach students to question, you're doing all of them a favor, okay? Those students with privilege, the Ali Dani student knows, जे भए पनि क्वेसन गर्न सिक्नु पर्यो कि उनीहरूले पनि देख्न सक्नु पर्यो कि प्रिभिलेज भने के हो ए मेरो मलाई त राम्रो रहेछ है तर के उसको जिन्दगी ठिक छैन जे त्यसरी क्वेसन गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ सबैलाई नै है इट डज एभ्री वान अ फेभर सो त्यसरी आई थिङ्क द्याट्स critical pedagogy. Instead of trying to get to the power inequities and trying to fix the problem, right? Because the educators can only do so much, right? You do a little bit and hopefully the next person does a little bit and that's how we need to change. But I think what critical pedagogues would say is that in a classroom, by teaching how to question, by teaching how to read your reality, right? And by guiding that process a little bit, you're actually encouraging both those with privilege to see privilege and those with a lack of privilege to understand these systems that are leading to this kind of disparities. तर भन्न सजिलो छ गर्न अलिक गाह्रो छ त्यो चाहिँ हो
So I have a few questions that I'm going to keep asking for a while and then we open up the floor. Okay? So you talked a little bit about disruption and disruption being essential for social change. I think along with that is the idea of teaching as a political act. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? And because I request you to do this, because often in the Nepali context, we tend to see politics in school as the bigger problem, and we're constantly battling that, the bigger political discourse, making it, like the ideal hegemony of really vibrant but really sort of awful sort of political reality coming into the school space. But here you're talking about the necessity of disruption inside the classroom to hegemony and how teaching becomes a political act. What do you mean by that?
Excellent question. So there are two types of politics, right? There's a capital P politics and there's a lowercase p politics, right? Capital P politics चाहिँ हाम्रो यो जुन देखिन्छ नि partisan politics अनि त्यसपछि गभर्मेन्टको politics यो सबै कुरा हो है त्यो चाहिँ तपाईहरुको मेरो भन्दा तपाईहरुकै बढी एक्सपिरियन्स होला यो स्कुलहरुमा चाहिँ कसरी नेभिगेट गर्ने यो पार्टीहरु आउँछ एउटा पार्टीले एउटा कुरा खोज्छ आफूले आफू खोज्छ के रे बन्द हुन्छ स्कुल लाग्दैन बच्चाहरु घरमा हुन्छन् है त्यो पी पोलिटिक्स भने in some ways that's a contextual thing that's happening in our environment and I don't know about you but sometimes I feel like I have very little control over that, right? But then there is the small p politics, right? The small p politics is के हो भने teaching like त्यो अघि मैले पाउल फ्रेले भनेको थिएँ नि उसले के भन्छ भने teaching itself is a political act, right? किन भन्दाखेरि त्यो जुन disruption भनेको छु नि it can be a productive disruption or it can be a detrimental disruption. This disruption is completely detrimental, right? It's the school life छैन यताउता. This disruption is actually challenging the status quo. So it's a productive disruption, right? It's a disruption that hopefully will bring about some changes. Hopefully will shift our thinking, will allow us to think in different ways, to act in different ways, will bring about some behavioral changes, right? Which we all need. त्यो छ. त्यसैले यो lowercase politics चाहिँ, right? तपाईहरुले है यो काठमाडौँको एकदम पढे लेखे मान्छे गाउँमा गएर पढाउनु त्यो नै it's a political act के किनभने I'm sure society expects all of you to do something completely different हैन but to go against that and to say no I want to serve the country in this way or I want to serve for a few years in this way is a lowercase political act, right? So that's the distinction here, right? That's the distinction. यो navigate गर्न खै बा मलाई पनि गाह्रो हुन्छ हाम्रो पनि त्यहाँ अमेरिकामा पोलिसी चेन्ज गरिदिन्छ ट्रम्पले एक दिन अनि त्यसपछि स्टुडेन्टहरुलाई इम्प्याक्ट भइहाल्छ है त्यस्तो कुराहरू भइरहन्छ तर यो चाहिँ this is within our control, right? So this whole thing is about teaching as a political act, meaning that we're disrupting in productive ways, right? अर्को एउटा टर्म छ है म यो मनपर्ने टर्महरू दिइरहेको छु तपाईँहरूलाई खोइ निद्रा लागेको के हो त्यो चाहिँ के हो भने transformative resistance है अघि यो ग्रामसीको कुरा हो र अर्को जीबाटै स्टार्ट हुने एउटा हेनरी जुरू भन्ने फ्रेन्चम्यानको टर्म के यो चाहिँ अनि त्यो यसले के भन्छ भने अब हो इट क्यान बी रियली ओभरवेल्मिङ होइन अब पढाउनु पनि छ गाउँमा जानु पनि छ अनि त्यसपछि अब ला अब कन्सियसनेस पनि सिफ्ट गर्नुपर्ने रे अब यो त एकदमै म सक्दिनँ भनेर हिँड्दै पनि भयो है कहिले तर sometimes that disruption is quite simple, okay? How do you disrupt? When you see certain things, right, you choose not to do that, right? केटीहरूलाई चाहिँ बाहिर बस्छ केटाहरूलाई चाहिँ आओ राम्ररी तिमीहरू अगाडि क्लासरुमको अगाडि केटाहरू बस्छ अनि केटीहरू पछाडि बस्यो नि हुन्छ उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ टाइममा जानु पर्ला अब यता हेल्प गर्न के गर्नु पर्ला त्यो देख्दाखेरि है टिचरले क्लासरुम रिअरेन्ज गरेर होइन केटीहरूलाई अगाडि राख्छु केटाहरूलाई पछाडि राख्छु आज अनि त्यसपछि चेन्ज गरौँ न भनेर द्याट काइन्ड अफ एक्ट इज ट्रान्सफर्मेटिभ रेजिस्टेन्स है मेरो युनिभर्सिटीमा के हुन्छ भने अब त्यो के मान्छेहरूले अवार्ड पाउँदाखेरि किन भए जस्तो गरिदिने कि अनि त्यस्तो के हुँदा के हुन्छ भने एक दुईजनालाई चाहिँ एकदम है ल गर्ने मान्छेलाई अपहोल्ड गरे जस्तो अरूहरू त हार्ड वर्किङ पिपललाई चाहिँ कुनै अटेन्सनै नदिए जस्तो कि अनि त्यसपछि मैले चाहिँ के गर्नु थालेँ डिग्री भएपछि त्यो चाहिँ म गर्दिनँ from time to time I send out an email that recognizes everyone's contributions whether it's whether you won an award or you just taught a really good class, right? Did business as usual. That kind of thing, for me, is transformative resistance, right? Because there are power inequities otherwise, right? If you and I don't want that. I want everyone to feel valued, right? So, doing those things doesn't require a whole lot of, work. I know. नयाँ करिकुलम एकदमै ट्रान्सफर्मेटिभ करिकुलम develop गर्नु पर्यो भने that's great, but you don't have to do that for transformative resistance. You, as an educator, read your reality, see where there are power inequities, and then make a decision to rearrange that. And by doing that, you're questioning those common sense assumptions, right? Why does the classroom have to be arranged in this way? And by doing that, you start actually questioning the ways in which society is arranged. You start with the classroom and then you start seeing all these ways. Even the students, right? When the girls are given a little bit of priority, when they haven't gotten that for a long time, it in some ways transforms them. So this transformative resistance is actually a really effective way of disrupting without thinking about disruption in this way. Change make a statement. Just in our practices, how do we think about things that we just follow because that's how they've been done, but are problematic?
And it's pretty uncomfortable, isn't it? Like,
very
make these disruptions.
It is, and you'll be challenged, right? The award monuments and the complaint and I am in my company. So attention or this one. And then when I explained, they weren't able to challenge that thinking. And if you say you're about social justice, but you also want this kind of attention, you're begging for it, you're asking for it, then I am also going to challenge that. That kind of dialogue is essential to this case. It's also a process of consciousness raising, तर सजिलो काम होइन, absolutely.
Yeah, one last question from my end, and I'll stop. Sometimes, though, like we walk into a classroom as teachers and we want to make these disruptions happen, and we presume that it is easy on the participants, right?
Yes.
So the discomfort on the one hand is for teachers as agents of change, but then the recipients on the other hand are students. And for them, for us to provoke transformation, by asking them to partake in this disruption is a pretty big ask. What is your opinion about us walking into a classroom, and particularly for Teach for Nepal, because we tend to go into the society for about 2 years, a shorter period of time. Community is not very clear about, right at the moment they are, because we have a legacy of service, but not everybody is totally convinced how much of an engagement you're going to do in that society in the long term, right? But we come in and we want to push those frontiers, we want to disrupt, we want to make it equal and create a sort of an artificial equilibrium in our classroom that is not sustained by the society. But we're saying that's right for our children, right? So how does a teacher negotiate that, and to what extent can you push these things? And where do we have to be cognizant to context?
That's excellent, eh? किनभने हामी पनि we can unknowingly be the perpetuators of this kind of reproduction of the status quo. त्यो चाहिँ पक्कै हो र अर्को एउटा टर्म है last term हाम्रो युनिभर्सिटीमा पनि के टिचरहरूलाई हाम्रो मिसन के भनेदेखि टु एडभान्स जस्टिस थ्रु एजुकेसन है, हाम्रो स्कुल अफ एजुकेसनको मिसन। तर अफन के हुन्छ भने मान्छेहरू आफ्नो कम्युनिटीमा गर्नेहरू पनि हुन्छ है, म चाहिँ के आई वान्ट बी अ टिचर एन्ड देन आई वान्ट टु सर्भ माई कम्युनिटी भन्ने धेरै छन् है। द्याट्स डिफरेन्ट. But there are also a lot of people who say, I want to be a teacher and then I want to go and serve that marginalized community, that oppressed community. So हामी सधैँ के भन्छौँ भन्दाखेरि you have to have cultural humility before you go into any space that's not your own. So के हो त त्यो cultural humility भन्दा हामी है educators themselves have to be introspective, right? We have to be very honest with ourselves about our positioning in society, right? म चाहिँ को हो, हामी रेशले अघि नै भनेको थियो नि, हामी सानो हुँदाखेरि यहाँ हुर्किँदाखेरि धेरै प्रिभिलेज थियो कि नेपाल जस्तो ठाउँमा हुर्किँदाखेरि। त्यस्तो कुराहरू चाहिँ हामीले बुझ्नु पर्यो कि, त्यसैले कम्युनिटीमा गएर ल म सबै अब भोलि नै यो सब प्रब्लमहरू सल्भ गर्छु भन्यो भने that's not only unrealistic, because this kind of work takes a long time, right? It's an investment, right? It's time for investment, and it's a way of life. Okay? It really should be a way of life. But within that, if you don't have cultural humility, right? You say more like a sabai kura थाहा छैन, म चाहिँ जान्छु, सिक्छु, पहिला के रहेछ, कसो रहेछ, अनि त्यसपछि I'll analyze the possibilities भनेको थिएँ नि। So the part of reading that reality, right, that takes time. It takes time to read reality. So if you're in a community, you have to take the time to say, के रहेछ मान्छेहरूको कहाँ openness छ, कहाँ openness छैन, के गर्न खोजेका छन् हैन, यो स्टुडेन्टहरूले के खोजेका छन्, अनि त्यो आधारमा है I think educators are some of the most intelligent people, but I might be biased, right? तर आफ्नै इन्टेलिजेन्सले पनि, and then you analyze the possibilities, right? आज के गर्न सक्छु, 5 months in मैले करिकुलम कसरी डेभलप गर्न सक्छु कि अलिअलि यो कन्सेप्टहरू गर्नु, त्यसपछि 1 वर्षमा म के गर्न सक्छु, त्यसैले सेकेन्ड इयरमा चाहिँ अनि स्टुडेन्टहरू पनि अलि युज टु भएपछि यस्तो अनि त्यो कम्युनिटीले पनि ए हो राम्रै काम गरेर रहेछ भन्दाखेरि के हुन सक्छ भन्ने कुरामा के त्यसरी सोच्नुपर्छ. So that's part of having cultural humility. Okay? I don't know everything going into a community. I need to also read the reality, and then I can analyze the possibilities.
How is it complex in a multicultural setting, like in Nepal too, as well as in San Francisco or wherever, to have lots of belief systems and you constantly. So, how does a modern teacher manage not negotiating all of these cultural realities and consciousness? Where do we take that? So, coming back to authority and power of the teacher, where does that teacher then actually finally exercise his or her power?
I mean, I think it is in the classroom that power has to be exercised, right now. But I don't know how it is for you, but usually you develop relationships, I know, with the community, with parents at least, to the extent that you can. I mean, it's also in relationship building, okay? त्यो टिचरले पेरेन्ट्सहरुसँग रिलेसनशिप बिल्ड गर्न थाल्यो भने that itself is a disruption of a different kind, right? Well, just to give you an example, थेचो भन्ने ठाउँ थाहा छ? थेचोमा चाहिँ टिचर ट्रेनिङ इन्स्टिट्युट छ के त्यहाँ चाहिँ 2 जना दाङको महिलाहरूले चलाइरहनु भएको छ कि अहिले. अनि त्यसपछि दाङबाट टिचरहरू आउँछन् अनि त्यहाँ ट्रेनिङ इन्स्टिट्युटमा कति 1-2 हप्ता बसेर ट्रेनिङ गर्नुहुन्छ. अनि त्यहाँको एउटा मेन पार्ट अफ द्याट एजुकेसन चाहिँ के भने बच्चाहरूको खालि इन्टेलेक्चुअल डेभलपमेन्ट मात्र होइन, कसरी चाहिँ यो मोरल डेभलपमेन्ट हुन्छ नि, क्यारेक्टर डेभलपमेन्ट गर्ने. द्याट्स द प्राइमरी गोल अफ द्याट टिचर ट्रेनिङ इन्स्टिट्युट के. अनि त्यसपछि त्यो टिचरहरू चाहिँ दाङमा गएर अनि आफ्नो स्कुलमा पढाउनु हुँदो रहेछ कि. अनि गर्दा गर्दा त कम्युनिटी गाउँको मान्छेहरू त्यो नजिकैको प्रिन्सिपलहरू सबैले त्यो गाउँको अथोरिटीहरूलाई आएर अनि होइन हामी त सबै टिचरहरू पठाउनु पर्यो भन्नु थाल्यो अरे कि. किन भन्दाखेरि त्यो बच्चाहरूको बिहेभियरै आएको हुन थाल्यो कि त्यो कम्युनिटीमा. अलिकति कम्युनिटीलाई कसरी हेल्प गर्नु, कसरी सघाउने, यस्तो यस्तो कुरामा उनीहरूले मैले स्कुलमा यस्तो सिकाएको छ यस्तो गर्नु थाल्यो. तपाईँहरू पनि होला टन्न एक्जाम्पल है त्यस्तो. तर त्यही हो कि आई थिङ्क द्याट्स द डिस्ट्रप्सन. सो समटाइम्स वी थिङ्क अरे अब जेन्डर पनि क्लास पनि के अरे जातभात पनि यो सबै इस्युहरूलाई हामीले कसरी एड्रेस गर्ने यस्तो डिप रुटेड छ है, यस्तो यो भने जस्तो कि इट्स सो स्टिप्ड इन द कम्युनिटी. तर आई थिङ्क समटाइम्स वी हेभ टु ब्रिङ इट टु scale it to a point where it's very real. Okay, मैले पनि के गर्न सक्छु? If it's just developing relationships, I know, stay relationships with all the parents. केटीको होस् कि केटाको होस् कि एउटा जातको होस् कि जस्तो फ्यामिलीसँग पनि त्यो टिचरले चाहिँ राम्ररी डेभलप गर्न सक्यो रिलेसनसिप भने that itself is a disruption. मैले अगाडि भने जस्तो त्यसैले हो इट्स ओभरवेल्मिङ. हाम्रो पनि युएसमा के race, right? Race is such a big thing in the US. That's what it's all. I mean, African Americans, whites, immigration, children separated at the border from their parents. This context, our student for our mission they teach in some of the most difficult schools where 90% of the kids are immigrant kids. Right? English is an issue. They have learning differences. Society is already stacking everything against them, right? Systemically, they have so many challenges. And they're trying to be critical educators. And they want to God, sometimes I don't know where to start. Right? You might be able to connect with that too. Where do you start in this kind of thing? You have to bring it down to your own, right? At this point, what can I do? And then how do I build on that as I go ahead? And for me, a critical point is of building relationships. If you don't do anything else, right? If you just spend your time in building relationships with the students, right? You know, कतिपय स्टुडेन्टहरूले टिचरहरूसँग एउटा राम्रो प्रोडक्टिभ रिलेसनसिप कस्तो हुन्छ भनेरै एक्सपिरियन्स गरेर आउँदैन के. हामी त कस्तो डराउँथ्यौँ है मोस्ट टिचरहरूसँग त कुनै भएर के त्यसैले त्यस्तो कुराहरू त्यो even building those relationships, even taking time, investing time in building relationships with students and parents is breaking some of those common sense assumptions that the teacher has authority and the daughter process त्यसैले त्यो सधैँ स्केलमा ल्याउनु पर्छ के गर्नु सक्छु अहिले के गर्न सक्छु तर we don't have the freedom to not do anything. त्यो चाहिँ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई है where historically we've come to a point where the issues of the world यहाँ होस् जहाँ होस् are so grave के है we've come this far but these inequities are still deep gaps are getting wider it's just so त्यसैले I don't think as educators we can say ल गएर पढाइदिन्छु त्यो चाहिँ एउटा I don't think we can my challenge would be that we can't take that stance but I also don't think that we have to go in thinking I'm going to solve all the problems त्यो पनि I think it's unrealistic so I think it's really that introspection that reflection is really critical okay हामीले के गर्न सक्छौँ म अहिले के गर्न सक्छु भन्ने कुरामा किनभने बर्नआउट पनि हुनु भएन
And then we take questions from the floor.
Are so narrow and they have these ideological hegemony belief systems. So, उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ कसरी we challenge the status quo and how do we actually try to raise consciousness within the family itself and then to the community?
Excellent question. Probably harder, than going and doing because after older generation, it's a good question, and I'm sure you all have some of the best examples. Basically, I think that we should open up to everyone. I mean, in this case, I think mostly we learn from examples. Because you disrupt the status quo with the older generation. I think sometimes it's in the choices we make. कतिपय एल्डर्सहरू तपाईँहरू के होला नि यो के अरे डाक्टर हुन जान्छ भने अब गाउँमा पढाउन जानेहरूलाई त्यस्तो पनि हुन्छ भन्ने कि चाहिँ त्यस्तो एक्सपेक्टेसनहरू नि है हाम्रो I come from this type of family so I expect this from my kids भने अस्ति भर्खर एकजना भेट भएको थियो अमेरिकामा भर्खर पढेर आएछ अनि अब उसको बुवाले चाहिँ ल अब नेपाली बस्नुपर्छ यस यहाँ काम गर्नुपर्छ भन्दाखेरि बसिरहेको थियो अनि पछि सुटुक्क आएर मलाई भन्यो कि हुन त हो है मलाई पनि नेपाल बस्नु मन छ तर फ्यामिलीको भ्याल्युजले नै मलाई कस्तो गर्छ यहाँ बस्दाखेरि भनेर भनिरहेको थियो कि त्यो त्यस्तो हुन्छ र त्यो पनि I think again it's hard because especially in our culture you have to respect your elders too so I feel like part of what we need to do especially as educators especially as these people who are trying to kind of think differently do differently we also have to be comfortable sitting with these tensions sometimes we have to be comfortable with tension मेरो त लाइफै टेन्सन जस्तो लाग्छ कि इट्स अलवेज सो त्यही यो टेन्सन पोइन्ट्समा के एउटाले यस्तो भइरहेको छ अर्कोले यस्तो भइरहेको छ अब बिचमा बसेर अब यु हेभ टु फिगर इट आउट के अनि पार्ट अफ इट इज बिङ कम्फर्टेबल इन द्याट टेन्सन you're doing your work with Teach for Nepal, your family might have some other expectations, and that's okay. Let them also observe that for a while. Okay? We don't always have to challenge their thinking. Let them observe. Let them take it in. Let them understand for themselves too. Right? That's challenging. Right? That's tension-filled. But I think that's the work of activists, especially educational activists today, is to be comfortable in that tension. It's to be okay with that tension. And time is an amazing resource, okay? Right? So, you need to see some kind of transformative outcome. Right? Social change requires time. If we look at any movement that has brought about some tangible change, सिभिल राइट्स मुभमेन्ट भन्यो यस्तो मुभमेन्ट भन्यो यहीँको डेमोक्रेटिक मुभमेन्ट भन्यो जे भन्यो त्यो चाहिँ त्यो वी जस्ट लुक एट द्याट मोमेन्ट तर all the things that had to happen for us to get to that moment we disregard okay? So we can sometimes think of ourselves as people in that movement right? But in a moment that's maybe not that prime moment when everything is going to change but we are contributors to a movement for social change. Okay? This is an older generation where they're concerned. Why the height challenge गरेर पनि के होला जस्तो लाग्दैन कि तर आफ्नै एनर्जी प्रिजर्भ गर्नु बेस्ट के त्यस्तो भए चाहिँ तर आफूलाई जे ठिक लाग्यो जस्तो छ नि त्यो काम गर्दा चाहिँ one thing is for sure they're observing right they're watching they're taking it all in too okay and that in some ways I think transforms them as well, right? Pride पनि हुन्छ नभन्न पनि सक्छ तर in some ways मैले धेरै देखाएको छु कि there's the cases where they're really also being transformed in that process because their range of possibility is being expanded too.
Just adding the other side, I think we make a huge mistake when we turn it black and white, older generation versus us.
Exactly.
To the younger generation, we're still the older generation doing the old things.
Yes.
It is really important to evaluate them as humans who in their times also made their leaps in change and they will understand your psychology as long as you can communicate. So to like demonize the older generation, their ways, why they're doing some things they're doing, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people, older people, if they stuck by some ways, they also have over time justified their ways. So going into why there are a lot of intelligent people around us. They are definitely more experienced. So to understanding, like when analyze rather than just dismissing it as them as old, I think it just helps even more. And also in our conversation, not simply dismissing things as old ways, because not likely they seem to have a reason. I really believe God of China two reasons. But again, that why and that reasoning and everything we do, even in dismissing or trying to negotiate with the older generation is really important as well. And if we can value and talk about what they actually changed during their times and what they're also trying to adjust to during early money, they're still trying to adjust. Like my mom, she never even got to the terrace where she's giving me all the freedom she wanted, and she's every day uncomfortable and being quiet about it every day. So to recognize that is also really important. Both sides coming to a middle ground to access. So in black and white, so yeah, it's a little uncomfortable.
That's a really good point, and I think case by case been different rules. Koi say they're open-minded, koi they're really sticking to this thing. Tara, मेरो स्कुल अफ एजुकेसनमा युनिभर्सिटीमा 3 वर्ष अगाडि एक्जाम्पल अफ द्याट है एकैचोटि एक थुप्रो प्रोफेसरहरू रिटायर गरे अनि नयाँ प्रोफेसरहरू ल्यायौँ कि अनि कत्रो टेन्सन के नयाँहरू चाहिँ दे केम इन फिलिङ लाइक है वी हेभ अल द एन्सर्स यताउता किन त्यस्तो गरे त्यो पहिलाको मान्छेहरूले भने ओल्डर जेनेरेसन चाहिँ फेरि कस्तो के दे फेल्ट सो लेफ्ट आउट एन्ड डिसरेस्पेक्टेड एन्ड सो अन है सो द्याट्स true, right? That it's really important to see what value each generation brings, right, to the work that needs to be done. I think the place where it gets a little tricky is when the older generation creates barriers, okay, for the younger generation. त्यो पनि भयो क्या हाम्रो स्कुलमा उनीहरू डिसरेस्पेक्टेड फिल भएर अनि होइन केही नगरिदिने यस्तो भन्ने कुरा तर द्याट्स अल यु युज द वर्ड नेगोसिएट है That's, I think, very smart. We have to really see like what does each generation bring and how do we negotiate that in what we need to do. So, all excellent points. Other questions? Yes?
Today, on the concept of we have many connections of raising consciousness and disrupting this ideological Islam and the questioning or it's a hard question. So now I think the big question becomes how. So my question to you is, how do you teach someone how to question?
That's a really good question. No pun intended. Kidding. Sunya also. Yeah, अगाडिको question. कसरी गर्नु त, like how do you actually teach people to question भन्ने है. अब I think that's the work of the educator है. ब्राजिलमा पाउलो फ्रेरेले कसरी गर्थ्यो भन्ने कुरा एउटा एक्जाम्पल है. पाउलो फ्रेरे भन्ने यो जुन एक्टिभिस्ट एजुकेटर छ, उसले चाहिँ के कुरा भने त्यो ब्राजिलमा थुप्रै फार्म वर्कर्सहरू थिए. यो फार्म वर्करहरूलाई चाहिँ हामी कसरी कन्सियसनेस रेज गर्ने, यिनीहरू त यस्तो अप्रेस्ड भइरहेछ है, यस्तो एक्सप्लोइटेड भइरहेछ यो ल्यान्डलर्ड्सहरूले गरेर, लाइक हाउ डु वी एक्चुअली create an education that raises consciousness and then allows them to be agents of their own change. So one thing that Paulo Freire did is sketches, drawings. And त्यसपछि ऊ त्यो एउटा ल्यान्डलर्डले फार्म वर्करलाई एक्सप्लोइट गरेर फोटो देखाउने कि उसमा गरिसकेका जस्तो हाँसिरहनु भएको छ. You already know all the answers. मलाई त क्वेसन मात्र गरिरहेको छ. अनि त्यो फार्म वर्करलाई गएर त्यसपछि यहाँ के भइरहेछ, के देख्छौ भनेर अनि क्वेसन गर्ने कि अनि किन त्यस्तो भएको होइन, यसले यसलाई एकदम गाली गरिरहेछ भने किन गाली गरिरहेको त, यस्तो बिचरा काम गरिरहेछ यसले कसरी किन गाली गरे, वाट राइट डज ही ह्याभ होइन, त्यस्तो क्वेसनहरू गर्दाखेरि अनि भन्ने के त्यो फार्म वर्करहरू they would come to this है. So combining that kind of thing with actual literacy के है, teaching them how to read and write as a really concrete होइन skill building coupled with this ability to look at reality and say किन लाइक कति जेनेरेसन भइसक्यो है हामीले यस्तै भएर मेरो के अरे बाउ बाजेले अहिले मसम्म किन यस्तो सिस्टम आयो त्यसरी के है. सो द्याट्स जस्ट वान इक्जाम्पल. अब मैले त्यो अर्को इक्जाम्पल दिएँ है, मेरो त्यो प्रोफेसरले धारपात कहाँबाट के ल्याएर उसको क्लासरुममै ट्रान्सफर्म गरेर स्टुडेन्टहरूलाई एउटा एक्सपिरियन्स जस्तो के हो किन यस्तो भयो त्यसरी क्वेसन गर्ने. ऊ छ के अरे एउटा प्रोग्रामै छ है, थिएटर अफ द अप्रेस्ड भन्ने कि अर्को एउटा साउथ अमेरिकन एजुकेटर एक्टिभिस्टले डेभलप गरे. त्यो चाहिँ के भने स्किटहरूबाट कि एन्ड स्किट लाइक सम काइन्ड अफ है एभ्री डे ह्यापनिङ इन अ स्पेसिफिक कन्टेक्स्टको स्किट गर्ने. अनि त्यसपछि त्यो पार्टिसिपेन्ट्सहरूलाई यहाँ के भइरहेछ किन यस्तो भएको भन्ने, अनि पार्टिसिपेन्ट्सहरू नै आएर अनि त्यसपछि यो सिचुएसनलाई कसरी चेन्ज गर्नु मिल्छ त भन्दाखेरि अनि दे स्टेप इन एन्ड दे डु समथिङ होइन उनीहरूकै आइडियाबाट, अनि देन यु डेभलप द्याट फर्दर के. अनि त्यस्तो लाइक दोज काइन्ड्स अफ टुल्स, देयर आर लट्स अफ एक्जाम्पल्स अफ दोज टाइप्स अफ टुल्स द्याट क्यान बी युज्ड टु क्वेसन होइन, टु जस्ट गेट डिपर इन्टु रियालिटी.
But crafting that moment of provocation is the job of the teacher. So how do you provoke thinking, right? Beyond what is the normal. So creating moments of provocation, this was like turning a classroom into a rainforest. It's a provocation. Okay? Come in, it's so unexpected that people are need to question. Why did you turn the classroom this way? So that's already one. As a kinex to go. So as a kinex to go, as a kiko लागि गरेको के सिकाउन खोजिरहनु भएको तपाईले हामीलाई भन्ने कुरा लिएर जानको लागि चाहिँ त्यो एभ्रीडे बिजनेस एज युजुअलमा त्यो इनिसियल डिस्ट्रप्सन त एजुकेटरले नै ल्याउँछ कि होइन. सो आफ्नो डिस्ट्रप्सन त्यहाँ भयो अनि त्यसले बच्चाको कन्सियसनेसमा गर्ने डिस्ट्रप्सन फेरि अर्को लेभलको हुन्छ. देन यु हेभ टु म्यानेज द कन्भर्सेसन द्याट ह्यापन्स, द डायलग द्याट ह्यापन्स बिट्विन दोज टु एक्ट्स.
अनि कपेसिटी बिल्डिङ पनि हुन्छ कि पार्टिसिपेन्टहरूलाई मैले पनि यस्तो गर्नु सक्छु भन्ने त्यो हुन्छ नि. मेरो बच्चाहरूको स्कुलमा कि एकदम सिम्पल कन्सेप्ट एउटा टेबल छ कि दुईवटा मेज भएको अनि अरू मेज चाहियो भने पनि एड गर्छ तर त्यसलाई पिस टेबल भन्छ कि. अनि मेरो छोरा अहिले 2 क्लास सकायो कि सेकेन्ड ग्रेडमा फर्स्ट किन्डर गार्डनदेखि नै झगडा पऱ्यो भने अनि टिचर चाहिँ इन्भल्भ नभएर अनि बच्चाहरूलाई नै ल पिस टेबलमा जाने भनेर सिकाउँछ कि अनि त्यसपछि कोहीसँग अब केही परिहाल्यो भने अनि त्यसपछि ल आई वान्ट टु कम टु द पिस टेबल भन्ने पिस टेबलमा बसेपछि एउटा स्क्रिप्ट जस्तो कि अनि तिमीले चाहिँ मलाई यसो गर्दा वेन यु डिड दिस टु मी इट हर्ट मी इन दिस वे आई निड यु टु नट डु द्याट अगेन भनेर भन्ने कि अनि उता अर्को साइडले पनि बोल्न पाउने कि अनि मैले चाहिँ त्यस्तो गर्न खोजेँ होइन यस्तो जे भन्नु नि होइन अनि उनीहरूले रिजल्भ गरेर अनि फुरुक्क जाने कि फेरि अनि मलाई त कस्तो रमाइलो लाग्यो फर्स्ट टाइम हेर्दाखेरि हामी त कि त निकालिदिन्थ्यो कि चाहिँ पनिसमेन्ट के गर्ने एउटा अलिक प्युनिटिभ हुन्छ नि त्यो चाहिँ हेर्दाखेरि कस्तो रमाइलो जस्तो बट द्याट्स क्यापेसिटी बिल्डिङ है हाउ डु यु रिजल्भ कन्फ्लिक्ट विथ समवन हाउ डु यु टक अबाउट द्याट होइन कि धेरै केही चाहिँदैन एउटा सानो टेबल अथवा एउटा सानो सुकुल भए पुग्छ कि बसेर अनि उनीहरूलाई सिकाउने कि कसरी चाहिँ कन्फ्लिक्ट रिजल्भ गर्ने भन्ने कुरा
Any other questions?
यस्तो म आफू पनि पहिले 2 वर्ष फेलो भएर काम गरेको थिएँ लगभग 3 वर्ष अगाडि त्यही बेला जस्तै त्यो पोभर्टीको कुरा गर्न वा जेन्डरको कुरा गर्न अनि अरू यो डिस्क्रिमिनेसन अरूको कुरा गर्नु बरु सजिलो हुन्थ्यो बच्चाहरूसँग किनकि त्यो चाहिँ मिडियामा आइरहेको हुन्थ्यो होइन बरु आर्टिकलहरू आइरहेको हुन्छ रेडियोले सुनाइरहेको हुन्छ विभिन्न रेडियो ड्रामाहरू आइरहेको हुन्छ टिभीमा प्रोग्राम आइरहेको हुन्छ तर अर्को एउटा हेजिमनी जुन मैले पनि आफूले राम्रोसँग कुरा गर्न सकिनँ र मलाई मन पोलिरहने अहिलेसम्म पनि त्यही हो जस्तै त्यो चाहिँ के भने त्यो गाउँ गरिब छ भन्ने एउटा कमन एजम्सन छ नि तपाईँले आइडियोलोजिकल हेजिमनीको कुरा गर्नुभयो होइन गाउँ गरिब छ अनि त्यही कारणले गर्दाखेरि जस्तै त्यो बच्चाहरू पनि जस्तै कोका कोला गाउँमा पुगेको छ होइन ऊ 80 रुपियाँ तिरेर कोका कोला किन्न तयार छ तर 5 रुपियाँमा पाउने कार्टुन किन्न तयार छ क्या कहिलेकाहीँ त्यस्तो कुराहरू चाहिँ कसरी ब्रेक गर्ने सानो सानो जुन अब मल्टिनेसनल कम्पनीहरूको एउटा एक हिसाबको त हेजिमनी छ नि त्यो चाहिँ गाउँमा कसरी एकदम गाह्रो छ किनकि कसैले कुरा पनि गर्दैन बाहिर त्यो मिडिया पनि आउँदैन पब्लिस पनि हुँदैन इन्डियामा यसो हेऱ्यो भने 4-5 जना जसले कुरा गर्थ्यो उनीहरूको मर्डर भयो होइन त्यस्तो कुरा चाहिँ टिचरले क्लासमा त्यो कसरी बिल गर्ने कि चुप्प लागेर बस्ने हो कि के गर्ने
तपाईँले एकदम ठिक कुरा लिनु ल्याउनु हो कि त्यो नै एउटा ठुलो हो कि एक्चुली त्यो मेरो अर्को 2 घन्टा छ भने मेरो अर्को एउटा सोप बक्स छ कि त्यो चाहिँ के भने यो ठुलो के ग्लोबलाइजेसन भन्छ नि न्यू लिबरलिजम भन्छ एक्चुली त्यो सिस्टमलाई है जो चाहिँ एकदम मार्केट मेन्टालिटी के त्यो एकदमै पर्भेसिभ छ कि सबै कुरा सबै ठाउँमा छ है जस्तै कि काँक्रो खानुभन्दा बरु गएर त्यो कुक खाएर अनि तर मलाई जहाँसम्म लाग्छ नि त्यो एउटा क्रिटिकल टिचरको है कस्तो राम्रो अपर्च्युनिटी भन्नुहोस् न होइन त्यो क्लासरुममा एटलिस्ट है यो कोकमा चाहिँ के छ भन्ने र काँक्रोमा चाहिँ के छ भने एउटा न्युट्रिसन क्लास जस्तो कि अब त्यो मल्टिनेसनल कम्पनीहरूको यस्तो स्ट्रङ होल छ है एडभर्टाइजिङ छ एडभर्टाइजिङ दिएपछि यस्तो ग्लग 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 खाएपछि अब सबैलाई खाउँ जस्तो लाग्छ है त्यो नै मार्केटिङ जस्तोको हो कि तर मेरो छोरी 12 वर्षको छ सन्डे हामी एउटा कम्युनिटी क्लास गर्छौँ कि त्यस्तैको लागि त्यो उमेरको बच्चाहरूलाई चाहिँ यस्तो कुरा क्वेसन गर्न कि मार्केटिङ भने के हो कम्पनीहरूले किन मार्केटिङ गर्छन् होइन के गर्न खोजे हो त्यो कोकमा चाहिँ कति चिनी हुन्छ भन्ने कुरा कि 1 कप हो कति हुन्छ एउटा बोतल कोकमा कि इट्स नट इभन अ जोक इट्स र काँक्रोमा चाहिँ के बेनिफिट हुन्छ भन्ने कुरामा त्यो पनि एउटा कन्सियसनेस रेजिङै हो कि अब तपाईँले क्लासमा त्यति पढाउनु भएन त्यसले मल्टिनेसनल कम्पनीलाई नै च्यालेन्ज गर्छ त भन्दा मेबी नट है द्याट्स वान क्लासरुम तर माइट द्याट एक्चुली सिफ्ट द कन्सियसनेस अफ अ चाइल्ड मेबी होइन अब त्यो आजकल मेरो छोरीलाई पनि हामी सन्डे भएमा यस्तो क्लास गर्छौँ कि यो बच्चाहरूलाई त्यही उमेरको बच्चाहरूलाई खोइ अब के सिकाएको छ कि सिकाएको छैन भन्न त भन्छौँ अब तर कहिले दे सरप्राइज यु के अनि हिँडिरहेको बेलामा होइन डिड यु नो कोक ह्याज यसो भनिदिन्छ कि अरूहरूलाई पनि कि चाहिँ होइन म त्यो खानुभन्दा यही खान्छु बरु भनेर उनीहरूले चुज गर्न सक्छ कि तर आई थिङ्क द्याट्स वान अफ द मोस्ट पावरफुल वेज अ क्रिटिकल पेडागोगी क्यान टिच के त्यसैले मलाई त त्यस्तो लाग्छ र विचार गर्नुहोस् न सबै टिचरहरूले त्यस्तो सिकाउनु थाल्यो भने we might actually start challenging some of these markets के थाहा छ त्यो हिस्ट्रीमा है कि लेबरको इस्युमा यस्तोको इस्युमा एक्टिभिस्टहरू आउँदाखेरि they have challenged some of these big companies त्यसैले त्यो overnight त हुने कुरा हैन they have such a strong hold but what a great opportunity to teach about nutrition or to teach about healthy eating choices यस्तो कुराहरू
So, time's up, so I can say closing. I'll give you ideological hegemony, Vijay Kurasam connect or neoliberalism, big narrative. I think you should read up on it if you haven't done it. तर अघि हामीले शिक्षाको लागि भन्ने इनिसियल डायलग स्टार्ट गर्दाखेरि प्रायः चाहिँ सबैले जागिर क्वालिटी अफ लाइफ यो त्यो मोनेटाइज्ड the purpose of education monetized into better living standards or progress, the ideal progress it's all driven by this market theory right? So हामीले चाहिँ अर्कै लेभलको त्यो ह्युम्यानिटीको कुरा गरिरहेको थियौँ मोनाले हैन त्यो ह्युम्यानिटीको पर्पस जस्तो नै पनि शिक्षाले कहाँ ठाउँ पाउँछ त where you fight injustices यसो भन्छ I've also been working with a private school after 5 years of focusing on public school interventions I've started now going into the private school foray because that question of who is critical pedagogy for is really, really very important for me because if all of them are Nepali kids, then whose consciousness do we want to build towards a more just society? Even me as an educator, I constantly battle with it. Teach for Nepal start Gordahedi, we made a conscious choice to attend to the needs of the public school, right? Because we made our assumption based on facts that or created a theory that said that this lot of people are much less privileged and injustice is happening to them. So therefore, as an institution, we will first attend to their needs. Often in social justice, you have to take that moral stance. You look at the status quo and you say, Hazurama चाहिँ नचुनी भएको केटीलाई नचुनी हैन मेन्स्ट्रुएट गरिरहेको केटीलाई छुट्टै बस्छ भनिरहेछ आमा छ उसको छोरी हो तिमी चाहिँ त्यो गर्नु हुँदैन भन्दाखेरि मैले हजुरआमालाई क्वेसन गर्ने कि छोरीलाई ठाउँ दिने भन्ने कुरामा छोरीलाई नै ठाउँ दिने हो भनेर चाहिँ एउटा सर्टेन खालको हामी मोरल स्ट्यान्ड चाहिँ लिन्छौँ कि हैन सो त्यसमा चाहिँ यसो हेर्दाखेरि तर उसको पनि त सोच छ नि I'm just trying to put it all in context. So while we are being humble, while we are being attentive to cultural sort of priorities of communities, individuals, whatever it is, there has to be a core within you that says, why not? In the greater humanitarian sort of scheme of things, this is unjust. Right? So therefore, I, as an educational activist, will choose to conscientize this other lot of people. Right? So त्यो हाम्रो यो प्रोजेक्टले चाहिँ त्यो गरिरहेको तर clearly Teach for Nepalको fellowship पछि त there is a whole life that is waiting for you to make those choices and moments happen in other contexts and realities. Right? Even for me, as a leader of Teach for Nepal institution, I am constantly worried about the fact, what about these kids in the private school? Right? So I've entered this really privileged and up-and-coming private school, and it's really interesting to have conversations with children there. Yeah? So 10th grade is, so just as an anecdote, I thought it would be interesting for you to hear this. 10th grade kids are dealing with gender equity. So we looked at the school landscape. Yeah? Who are the people there? School is headed by women. A lot of private schools in Nepal are headed by women if you just look at the data. It's a wonderful thing, right? Lots of teachers are women and whatnot. But then we realized that all early childhood teachers were women, and all the drivers were men, and all the cleaners were women in their school, right? So the perpetuation of that, the ideas, values, and whatnot, it was almost like that school was saying gender disparity or gender segregation in a certain class of people was okay. And those children were like, कस्तो डराए के तिनीहरू नि किन अघिसम्म यो बारेमा हामी समाजमा गएर सिकाउँछु भनिरहेको थियौँ होइन, but they haven't looked at it and they were like, oh my god, our school is now saying like the lower class, economic class को मान्छेहरूलाई चाहिँ यसरी gender segregate गर्दै हुने रहेछ भनेर नै ठानेर they're going for a meeting with the principal this week and I felt really bad. I was like, oh my god. So I had to warn the principal and the administration that the 10th grade kids were going to come with this case and actually talk to them about why it's happening. And I had to prep the administration that, listen, you want to get into the zone, you got to be comfortable with the fact that 10th graders are wanting to have a meeting with you. Nothing aggressive, but actually like talking about it. Have you an employment policy or an HR policy that specifically says women are better at cleaning? And why are you saying that? Right? Like really a origin. And then we said, no conclusions expected, but have that dialogue process. Right? So the principal was walking discussion by that. He was really worried because I was like telling him these conclusions. At the same time, another 5th graders wanted to work with a certain geographic area from their school and whatnot. What they realized was that this progressive whatever institution had so far not even established its geographic space as a school zone. Right? The school was there, it was very progressive. There's a lot of accidents happening on the road. But because all the kids are bussed in, the school was not even fulfilling that minimum societal expectation of declaring a space, a school space, because there the speed limit would have been less. There a zebra crossing would have been built. There other sort of expectations would have been put, which would have facilitated other children or people or even their children going on school trips. So your critical thinking capacity is actually, it makes you really aware of the gaps in your systems and makes the kids want to act towards, at least for the moment, patching it up because they're children and hopefully when they're adults, like really designing programs. Okay? So 2 points I wanted to establish was you do have to take that moral stance to say this is wrong and this is right. That is our job as educators. Otherwise, why would Paulo Freire walk into this farming community and say this is being perpetuated for far too long? And if I don't do something about it, it's just going to keep going. The other is it opens up the minds of not just the children, but the society in general. Okay? In this private school's case, thinking of yourself as really the great establishment, but then realizing that there are all these holes in the system that continues to perpetuate these things. So, but for us, it's very important to look at children in a common platform first. We say conscientizing must happen all across the board. But at the same time, we do say public school ko bachaharu chai ali badi nai tala paryo. So हामीले उनीहरूलाई level गर्नै पर्यो. So Shabnam, please say like a thing section your thing and then we'll wrap up. Yes, please.
Like consciousness is very good for people to say. Sometimes they don't know what to do
with it.
Like, they are, I mean, like they know, they know that early marriages and but they don't feel that power in it. So, what can be done in short?
That's a really good point, right? मैले सुरुमा भने नि क्रिटिकल मास चाहिँ चाहिन्छ कि सबै कुराहरूलाई अलिकति इम्प्याक्ट हुनलाई एकजनाले गर्न एकदम गाह्रो छ कि त्यसैले त्यो इभन द क्लासरुम है सिइङ द क्लासरुम एज अ क्रिटिकल मास एउटा बच्चाले आफूलाई कसरी साथ दिन सक्छ एउटा कुरामा कि चाहिँ टिचरहरूले बाबुआमासँग रिलेसनसिप गर्दा त्यो रिलेसनसिपमा केही एजुकेसनल कुराहरू हुनसक्छ कि है एट सम पोइन्ट त्यसैले त्यो एकजनाले कन्सियसनेस रेज गर्यो भने maybe they can make a change, but it's much harder when there's a critical mass behind that person, supporting that person. त्यसैले हामी चाहिँ त्यही भन्छौँ कि your classroom is the critical mass, right? You're educating a critical mass. र एउटै समुदायको बच्चाहरू भएपछि त्यो झन् सजिलो हुन्छ कि at least त्यो समुदायमा चाहिँ you're creating a critical mass of people who think differently, है? अब फेरि उनीहरूकै जेनेरेसनमा मेबी द चेन्जेस विल बी स्मलर, तर त्यही बच्चाहरू भोलि गएर बाउआमा हुँदाखेरि उनीहरूको कन्सियसनेस अलिक डिफ्रेन्ट छ भने उनीहरूको बच्चाको रियालिटी अझ डिफ्रेन्ट हुन्छ कि। त्यसैले हामी एजुकेटरको काम चाहिँ इट्स मल्टी जेनेरेसनल के, एउटा जेनेरेसनमा एउटा चेन्ज हुनसक्छ तर त्यसपछि अर्को हुन्छ र रेजिङ द्याट क्रिटिकल मास इज रियली इम्पोर्टेन्ट कि हाम्रो त्यो एजुकेसनमा पनि छैन कि त्यो मेन्टालिटी। फर्स्ट सेकेन्ड आउने बच्चाहरूलाई एकदम धेरै प्रेज गरिन्छ है, ए ल यस्तो जे पनि गर्न सक्छ, के अरे त्यो पोएम कन्टेस्टमा पनि त्यही फर्स्ट भए बच्चालाई, स्पोर्ट्समा पनि त्यही फर्स्ट भए बच्चालाई ऊ त्यो कलेक्टिभ है, द कलेक्टिभ एज अ क्रिटिकल मास भन्ने त्यतिको छैन कि हाम्रो मेन्टालिटीमा। त्यसैले द्याट्स अनदर शिफ्ट इज हाउ डु यु सी द होल क्लासरुम एज अ क्रिटिकल मास, द किड हु इज कमिङ फर्स्ट एन्ड द किड हु इज स्ट्रगलिङ के। त्यसैले त्यो एउटा आई थिङ्क इज अल्सो अ शिफ्ट है, एन्ड यु हेभ टु हेभ अ लङ्गर टर्म भ्यू। मेरो एउटा कलिग छ कि ऊ चाहिँ धेरै यो ग्याङकोमा भएको युथहरूसँग काम गरेको है, धेरै कुरा देखिसकेको कि उसले भन्छ कि रेसुको अघिल्लो कुरामा त्यो यो मोरल स्ट्यान्ड लिनुपर्छ भन्दाखेरि उसले सधैँ भन्छ टिच लाइक आवर लाइफ्स डिपेन्ड अन इट भन्छ कि। एन्ड इट्स ट्रु इन अ वे है। अब टिचिङ एज we've been teaching or like teaching just in terms of education, look at the state of our world, right? We have to be so if we don't use our capacity to teach, to shift consciousness, right, to take these moral stances, it is, our lives do depend on it. This is the next generation and then the next generation and the next generation, okay? So to allow the status quo to be just keep going, I think is itself a moral issue. Yeah, it's both something to be inspired by, hopefully. Like that's what I love about my work. Okay? Teacher education, I promote that. I do it because I just see like that's where change is going to come from. But at the same time, I think we need to be also very open about the fact that this is probably the most difficult work we can do, right? But it must be done. This is Theo. That's my closing. Thank you all so much.
He has a question. Always a room for questions.
आफू स्कुल पढ्दादेखि अहिलेसम्म पनि नबुझेको क्वेसन जुन स्टार्टिङमा पनि सुरु भएको थियो त्यहीबाट सोध्न चाहन्छु। जस्तो रेसुदी अनि अब हजुरको तर्फबाट शिक्षा चाहिँ के हो, वाट इज एजुकेसन अनि वाइ एजुकेसन इज निडेड, त्यो पहिलादेखि नै अहिलेसम्म बुझ्न नसकेको अहिले पनि नबुझिराखेको क्वेसन होइन। अनि जस्तो अहिले पनि हामीसँग कति धेरै टेक्नोलोजीहरू छ। पहिला चाहिँ यस्तो हाम्रो एजुकेसन जेनरल एजुकेसन के हुन्थ्यो भने प्यारेन्ट्सहरू चाहिँ पढे लेखेको हुनुहुन्न, सो स्कुलमा पठाउनुपर्छ, पढे लेखेको मान्छेहरूले पढाइदिन्छन् अनि जान्छन् भन्ने थियो। अहिलेको मार्केटमा हेर्ने हो भनेदेखि त लाइक सबै पढे लेखेको पनि स्कुलमा हामी प्यारेन्ट्सहरू कतिजना होइन। अनि यस्तो टेक्नोलोजी छ कि बच्चाहरूले स्कुलमा सिक्ने कुराहरू नसिकेको कुराहरू पनि घरमा सिकिरहेको छ, टेक्नोलोजी थ्रु कम्प्युटर थ्रु सिकिरहेको छ, जो हामी चाहिँ स्कुलमा पठाउँछौँ कि। सो त्यो कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ वाट इज एजुकेसन एन्ड वाइ एजुकेसन इज निडेड भनेर एउटा क्वेसन। अर्को क्वेसन चाहिँ जस्तो अघि न हामीबाट तपाईँले बुझ्नुभयो चाहिँ तपाईँको पोइन्ट अफ भ्यू बुझ्न खोज्यो वाट सुड बी द पर्पज अफ एजुकेसन होइन। लाइक अब फिजिकल ग्रोथ मात्र गराउन खोज्ने अथवा मेन्टल चेन्ज मात्र गराउन खोज्ने हो कि चाइल्डहरूको होइन, कुन चाहिँ वाट सुड बी द पर्पज अफ एजुकेसन।
पहिलो प्रश्न चाहिँ मैले राम्रो बुझ्नै क्या हो त्यो के अरे पहिला चाहिँ बाउआमा नपढेर स्कुलमा पठाउँथ्यो, पढे मान्छेले गर्ने भनेर, अहिले चाहिँ किन पठाउने भनेर।
शिक्षाले के हो जस्तो अहिले चाहिँ हाम्रो जेनरल पोइन्ट अफ भ्यू भनेको स्कुल जानु मात्रै स्कुलमा गएपछि पढ्यो भने शिक्षित भयो, कोही मान्छे गाउँ बस्नु तर उसको भित्र चाहिँ एजुकेसनकै
त्यो एकदम राम्रो क्वेसन हो। वाट इज द पर्पज अफ एजुकेसन भन्दा नि मान्छे चाहिँ हामी यस्तो के एउटा मान्छे होइन आफैलाई एउटा ह्युमनको कतिवटा डाइमेन्सन्सहरू छ है, कतिवटा छ। एउटा चाहिँ सोसल डाइमेन्सन छ, हामी एकअर्कासँग है कुरा गर्न सक्छौँ, हाँस्न सक्छौँ, बस्न सक्छौँ, रमाइलो लाग्छ यताउता। इन्टलेक्चुअल डाइमेन्सन छ है, त्यो चाहिँ हामी एकाडेमिक एचिभमेन्टबाट एकदमै है इन्टलेक्चुअल डाइमेन्सन डेभलप गर्ने भन्यो। अरू के छ, ह्युमन डाइमेन्सन छ, भित्रबाट माया लाग्छ मान्छेहरूको है, यस्तो दुःख लाग्छ, खुसी लाग्छ, यस्तो छ। धेरैले भन्छ होला स्पिरिचुअल डाइमेन्सन छ है, हाम्रो चाहिँ यो क्यापेसिटी टु लभ है, द क्यापेसिटी टु बी काइन्ड, द क्यापेसिटी टु बी कम्प्यासनेट, यो चाहिँ some might say it's actually spiritual qualities के that are innate in us है। त्यो हामीले स्कुलिङ चाहिँ when we look at it as यो बच्चालाई पढाऊँ अनि त्यसपछि पढाएको मान्छेले पढाइदिन्छ भनेर लेख्न पढ्न सिक्छ भन्दाखेरि इन्टलेक्चुअल डाइमेन्सनको जोस डेभलपमेन्ट हुन्छ टु सम एक्सटेन्ट है। एन्ड इन सम वेज मेबी द ह्युमन साइड टु पढेको कुरा पढेपछि अब किताब पढ्न पाइयो है, यस्तो पढ्दाखेरि नयाँ नयाँ कुरा आउँछ होला, एउटा किताब पढेर खुसी लाग्छ होला, अर्को किताब पढेर दुःख लाग्छ होला, त्यो पनि हुन्छ होला। तर हामीले त्यसरी मात्र स्कुलिङ हेर्दाखेरि त्यो सब अरू क्यापेसिटीहरू छ नि ह्युमन बिइङको फुल लाइफ लिड गर्न जुन चाहिन्छ त्यो हामीले सबै इग्नोर गर्छौँ कि। त्यसरी मैले चाहिँ यो मलाई यो मनपर्छ कि यो थियोरीहरू फर द्याट रिजन, किनभने this shows that schooling actually historically has served the purpose of maintaining the status quo in service of those who already have, okay, who are already privileged. अनि अझ छ धेरै लेखेको छ कि यसको टपिकमा कसरी चाहिँ स्टुडेन्टहरूलाई ट्र्याक गरिन्छ, अनि त्यो ट्र्याकिङले चाहिँ कसरी कोही कोहीलाई चाहिँ एकदम है हाई पोजिसन्सहरूमा लाग्छ, कसरी वर्कर्सहरू अरूलाई चाहिँ है लेबरमा मिनियल लेबरतिर पठाउँछ, यस्तो यस्तो कुराहरूमा नि। त्यसैले त्यो सोचाइबाट हेर्ने हो भने हामीले हाम्रो होल डेफिनेसन अफ स्कुलिङ अफ एजुकेसन हेज बिकम सो न्यारो के। अनि फेरि त्यो अघि ल्याउनु भयो नि यो मल्टिनेसनल कम्पनीहरू, यो त्यो न्यू लिबरल थिङ्किङले चाहिँ झन् के गरेको छ भनेदेखि यो कमन सेन्स असम्पसन भनेको थियो नि पहिला, द असम्पसन देन इज द्याट market mentality के है, if you can participate in the division of labor then you're successful है। जति नराम्रो मान्छे होस्, जति अन्याय गरोस्, त्यो गरेछ भने चाहिँ ल ठिक छ है कस्तो राम्रो एजुकेट भएको छ भन्ने एउटा के एकदम न्यारो भएको छ कि। त्यसैले मलाई चाहिँ अब सबैको भिन्न भिन्नै डेफिनेसन होला होइन वाट इज एजुकेसन भन्दा, मलाई जहाँसम्म लाग्छ education should really draw on all of those capacities okay, that human beings have, right? Education should make us more kind actually. Education should make us more loving. Education should make us realize that we have these inherent capacities okay, to do this, right? How do you react when someone's in pain? भन्ने कुरा त्यो हामीमा छ, तर के भएको छ भने बिकज अफ अल दिस कमन सेन्स असम्पसन्स हामी बिर्सिन्छौँ कि त्यो क्यापेसिटी छ भनेर। त्यहाँ कोही लडिरहेको छ भने मेरो कोही होइन त्यो मेरो दाइ भएको एउटा कुरा, तर त्यो चिनेको छैन म हिँड्छु भन्ने त्यस्तो हुन्छ कि। त्यसैले त्यही हो, द पर्पस अफ एजुकेसन सुड बी टु रियली ब्रिङ आउट अल दोज ह्युमन क्यापेसिटिज सो द्याट वी क्यान बी एक्टिभ एजेन्ट्स अफ चेन्ज भनेको थियो नि अगाडि, त्यही हो के। अनि र खै आन्सर गरेँ कि गरिनँ।
I'll just add to it. I think this effort, constant sort of relentless effort to try to ensure dignity to others, right? Or creating an environment where we're able to share a dignified life together. त्यो नै हुनुपर्ने हो खासमा। अब हाम्रो काम चाहिँ नेपालको कन्टेक्स्टमा नै रुट गरेर भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ I feel like my personal commitment towards working for Teach for Nepal has been to sort of bring to consciousness of a lot of children living in really difficult rural contexts that they are as able as I am, or as that next child in Kathmandu's fancy school. That ability to shine is inherent in that individual, no matter where, and no matter how difficult it is. Right? So, lending of dignity to each other and kind of
affording that dignified life, I hope, is the purpose of education, and I try to work towards that hope. Yeah, I don't think it is there yet, but I think we all have to try to. But the written word is one way of propagating humanity's history and whatnot. So saksharta, the ability to read and write, is a great tool of empowerment, right? Like she was saying earlier, because we are now documenting things in the written word, right? Oral history, cultural sensitive, we still have a lot of that, but not having access to the written word is one of the gravest injustices, right? So साक्षरता मात्रै आफै पनि एक्चुअली शिक्षालाई नै सार्थक बनाउने कुरा हुन सक्छ के सो नेपालमा ठुलो एउटा अभियान त धेरै वर्ष भइसक्यो नि त साक्षरतालाई नै बढाउने भनेर अनि who knows, maybe it ends there. Like if literacy is, and then with all of these new tools, access to tools becomes a bigger part of it. But we don't know. We constantly redefine what the purpose of education is, but उसले भनेको जस्तो complete human being भएर exist गर्न पाउने र एकले अर्कालाई अलिकति dignity grant गर्न सक्ने खालको relationship. It doesn't happen because of politics and power and all of that, but we kind of strive for this glorious reality.
र होपको कुरामा चाहिँ मलाई जहाँसम्म लाग्छ होप चाहिँ यही छ कि तपाईँहरू नै होप एटलिस्ट मेरो लागि त्यसैले धेरै धन्यवाद है आज
That's the life for right now. We're sharing the life. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you सबैलाई.
By the way, just a point of view, sorry, I forgot to mention this. She's a social justice activist in many ways. One of the ways is Iranma पढ्ने मान्छेहरु, बस्ने मान्छेहरुलाई underground university को active professor हो, because the state denies liberal education to Iranian folk. So she is part of this underground movement. I have a group picture here.